Thank you for taking the time to talk to CleanTechnica and its readers. I have here Guy and Honorata from Ricardo, the consulting company, helping companies go green and make the real change and transition. You've come to Poland to this Congress to talk about low emission zones predominantly. So let's start with that. You know, what are the challenges ahead of cleaner zones or low emission zones, whichever way you prefer to call it?
Okay, well, thanks for asking us to chat to you briefly. Yeah, so we've got a lot of experience working on clean air zones, as we call them in the UK, but also low emission zones more generally. And we're doing some work here in Poland to help the city of Warsaw with the ideas they've got for their new low emission zone. And I guess some of the key challenges are getting the evidence you need to be able to justify the scheme and making it an effective scheme. So rather than just kind of diving in, I'd like to do something like this, actually being clear, what is your problem that you're trying to solve? What wider objectives have you got for the scheme? And then being able to design it effectively to meet that so you can justify it. So when people challenge it or whatever, you know how you can actually answer those questions, and you have the evidence to be able to do that. So that's kind of the sort of the key role we play and what we see as a key challenge.
So is it true that basically all the work that has to be done and for it to be successful has to be done before you announce it, because you have to be prepared and communicate it well to the community? Because this is probably the challenge that most low emission zones face.
Yeah, so it's kind of yes in a simple word is you want to do the work up front, so you've got all the information you need, but actually it's also important to go out and say this is what we're planning to do, and get feedback from residents and businesses, so they could give you a lot of information. You can't answer all of the questions from the beginning, so we find it more of an iterative process. So you start off, collect the evidence, design what you think is the most effective scheme, go out and consult on that, and then you will get feedback. And then you may need to adjust it. So we tend to look at things like, certain businesses that are going to struggle to meet the requirements. They may need a little bit more time. So you may have an exemption for them for 12 months to give them more time. Or some cities may help with grants for those businesses. And actually understanding the detail of that and really the problems people face is when you start engaging with them and getting that feedback from the businesses and residents.
It's Ricardo has got lots of experience, obviously, in working with the UK cities, but coming to Poland, it's more specific. It's Poland is a different country.
Wanted to ask, how is Warsaw doing? Right?
Exactly.
That's the question exactly. I wanted to ask the moment you mentioned the city.
So it's great we can transfer certain experience from UK to the Polish realities, but also we are also learning. Yes, we have lots of conversations because obviously there is society struggle with slightly different problems, and that's what this study really does. It's try to bring the experience from more advanced cities in this area, but tackle that to Polish circumstances, yes, to Warsaw in this particular case.
I think a lot of the issues will be similar from city to city. So what we hear from cities in the UK, we'll get similar messages from here in Warsaw. So I mean, what we were talking about earlier, taxis are always a very vocal,
of course,
part of the community, and it's the same here in Warsaw as it was back in the UK. But actually, when you engage with them, understand the issues they face and how you can help them, then you can make that less of an opposition group.
And we had actually very positive response from the Warsaw taxi industry. Actually, like not being against, they basically were saying. we know it's coming, but we also would like to flag up how we need your support to help us with this transition, which I thought it's a very constructive discussion, really.
I think it is important to make them a partner in that transition.
Absolutely.
Because they are, as you said, they're a vocal group, but they all, they have such a power to impact other people because they talk to everybody.
Yes.
And
the world over, taxi drivers talk.
If you win the taxi drivers, you can win an election, right?
Yeah.
So my question would be, how is Warsaw progressing? Like, if you were to say today, okay, where are we on this path to having the low emission zone?
It is
whatever you can say, of
whatever
course.
I can say. So yeah, it is progressing, and they've got the options that they're looking at doing. Obviously, you've got an election coming up, so the main decisions are going to be made after the election. But they've done a lot of work, and we've supported them with that work, along with the Clean Air Fund, who provided other organisations to help support them. So they've certainly made a lot of progress. They've got some plans that they're seriously considering, but obviously. The decision has not been made yet.
Of course.
Yeah.
I said before, you're a global company advising and consulting companies globally. And I sometimes get that feeling that it's very easy to, I wouldn't say the word cheat, but, to somehow show, we call it greenwashing. How to make sure that what companies do is the real ESG effort, not just greenwashing?
Okay, so this is moving on the agenda from low emission zones.
Yes.
So I'm going to hand over to Anna, because we're doing a particular project on helping companies. So if they think air quality, so we do most of our work on air quality, is a particular issue for their ESG concerns, how to actually go about assessing that and then taking action. So we have a particular project on that, which will be worth perhaps Anna saying a few words on that.
Well, the greenwashing is always a little bit of a challenge, I suppose. But I think companies in this whole ESG scheme recognize that the right and honest reporting is actually a way forward. Yes? And I think that's how those reporting agendas they created, and that's why it's becoming so much important really for organizations to get it right, because I don't think the culture of greenwashing is actually will take you
far, right?
Yes,
correct.
Because the damage on the reputation which you're creating by greenwashing is actually probably detrimental for your further business. So I think it's a bit of a mindset and attitude of their organizations. And Guy mentioned this, some new projects, some new reporting framework that we in Ricardo created. For example, organizations to be upfront, to be one step forward than others. So I think the mindset is moving from hiding something under the carpet to being upfront and being actually proud that we recognize the issue and we're working with the issue. And this reporting framework which we developed allowed organizations not only looking at the carbon emissions, and the report the carbon emissions, for example, but got step farther, almost a step which is exceeding the current policy which is in place, and allowed organizations to start reporting the air pollution footprint, for example. Perfect. So, and we work with really organizations which they know there is no regulation and ask to do that. So there is no stick there, but they really like this approach to show that actually we don't have to do it, but we would like to do it. And we would like to show you not only in our carbon emission, but also we would like to show you what is, for example, our air pollution emission, which is a really important aspect of even low emission zones and everything what we talk about in here at this Congress. We talk the carbon reduction and the carbonization being mentioned in this Congress probably 100 times already, and we only at noon first day. But what people don't mention here is the air pollution and the really impact that we try to
on a daily basis.
On the daily basis for the
something
population.
Tangible for us.
So,
right?
like I said,
CO2 is always something abstract for most people.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's why, like you said, we've got actually that kind of reporting frameworks which allowed organizations to go a step further. And going back to the ESG, yes, I think is the certain honesty and mindset and thinking upfront So greenwashing is probably
Yes, so that's what I thought of ESG with the detailed reporting system as being a chance of, eliminating greenwashing. You can't get away with the slogan if you don't report it, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, you wouldn't like to. I don't think we're moving from shame.
But it's also, I mean, we had a really interesting discussion with our central team who does all our corporate reporting, and they made a commitment that they do greenhouse gas reporting now, and they're now going to do air pollution reporting following our in-house method. But they said, but their first thing was like, well, I need to be absolutely clear with you. We need to be able to verify this because we are reporting it in the public arena for our shareholders and investors. So it has to be watertight.
Right.
So and I think that's when it becomes part of formal reporting rather than just slogans, buzzwords. Then you get rid of that.
Yes. So there is hope.
There's absolutely hope, and I think, like you said, if you would like to be a business which is upfront and actually look forward, I think that's that kind of reporting is.
You mentioned clean air and pollution. So I would jump back to, clean air and low emission zones. So we keep moving there and back. But I mentioned I'm from a small town, so I ask everybody about small towns. Like, how can we help them? The focus is normally on large municipalities. What can a small town do? Where transport is not such a major challenge, but it's still there, right?
Yeah.
Household heating is probably a bigger issue, especially in Poland.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to a small town?
And I think this is where the evidence comes in. So a low emission zone or a clean air zone may not be appropriate for a small town. It may be a sledgehammer to crack a nut. So the thing is understanding what your problem is, what's causing it, and then what a sensible, effective solution would be. So a good example was a town we worked with in the UK, and the government said you're exceeding the air quality limit values, but it's only in a few places. And so do you need to do a study on a low emission zone? And the politicians basically said, over my dead body will I implement one. But what we did when we looked at it, it was basically 2 locations, and actually it was more effective to tackle that with a new traffic management scheme than investing in a full low emission zone. So that's the route we went down, and everyone was happy with that.
And also for smaller places, I think it's a case of understanding what is actually causing the problem.
Yeah.
Sometimes passing traffic actually causes the problem for people living in the place. So smaller places might not actually. People from the smaller places may not actually cause the problem themselves because the population is smaller. It's the traffic which passing through. And I had the example as well, working in small city, small town, which, like Guy said, is a traffic management. You go to a certain extent, you look what are the blockers, and as simple as redesigning GPS systems sometimes help.
Can you do that?
Yes, you can speak. Speak to organizations. Lorries, traffic, for example, you actually send them around the small places, yes.
But also you made the point is understanding what the problem is, and you said home heating can be part of it. Also, everyone talks about air pollution. They tend to mix it up with climate, but actually you're talking about different things. So even with air pollution, you have different pollutants. So the 2 key ones, we talk about nitrogen dioxide, and the key source of that is likely to be transport. And the other one is particulate matter, particularly PM2.5, and that can have a much wider range of sources. And you say home heating, if it's solid fuel heating, may be the bigger problem, not transport, in which case tackle that first, sort that out. If you've still got a problem, then come back to your transport.
Whichever the case, you still need to convince the local community that it's worthwhile, right? That it's worth the effort. And that's probably one of the challenges still we face in the clean tech world.
And I think one of the things we do about that is and a bit like you said with climate. Climate's kind of this big issue, but with air quality, it becomes much more of a local issue, and you can turn it into health impacts. What are the health impacts that you're suffering in your community? And if we do this, how will those be reduced? And we can paint that picture from the data and show you how this will affect the health of your local community, and it can bring it home to them.
Sounds great. So, final one, since we've been working in Poland, do we differ a lot from other cities in Europe approaching the low emission zones, or just just the same in having the same fears, the same concerns?
I think generally, yeah, the same fears and concerns are the same. Different countries obviously have slightly different legislations. We've got Raise the Lost Art coming in.
Yeah, that's a challenge. I hope the mics will do well. They're local.
Yeah, we'll manage it. But I think, yeah, usually the main concerns are very similar, and it's how will this impact the businesses in my city and the competitiveness of my city, especially if you have cities that are nearby. So if I put in a low emission zone, will that send traffic or customers?
Or business.
Yeah.
Would I actually affect my business? Yeah.
So I think those are the questions that the City of Warsaw was asking us. What can we find out about businesses? What are going to be the impacts? And I think it's that business community they generally want to persuade more than perhaps the residents, because the residents say, look, is air quality, it's going to be improved, it's good for your health.
Now, that's an interesting point, that we are normally handling businesses, which is a bigger challenge than the residents.
Exactly, and many of these schemes, they don't always affect all types of vehicles. They may focus on the goods vehicles and the vans and not tackle cars at all, which then changes the dynamics because it's the businesses that will be most affected.
Definitely so. Okay, guys, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to welcome you here, and enjoy the rest of the Congress. I hope it will get quieter in a minute.